fans, same exact draft slot as it's been the last several seasons. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. What position should be the number one priority for the Pittsburgh Steelers to target here in round one this year? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Ethos. And while I tell you about Ethos today, let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Ethos. And guys, the summer before I started here at Chat Sports, unfortunately, I lost my late grandfather. And as you tend to do when you lose a loved one, you begin to think about your own mortality and what would happen to the people dependent on you if something were to happen. With today's sponsor, Ethos, your family can be protected. If something were to happen to me, I want the last thing the people I love to worry about is being able to pay the bills, so I trust Ethos to keep them protected. And as you probably already know, however, the process for obtaining life insurance can be super confusing or straight up annoying with how tedious the process can be. That's where our friends at Ethos come in. As of March of 2025, Business Insider named Ethos the #1 no medical exam instant life insurance provider. Ethos is an online platform that makes getting life insurance fast and easy to protect your family's future in minutes and not months. There's no complicated process, and it's 100% online. There's no medical exam required, and you just answer a few health questions to get a quote in as little as 10 minutes. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos today. Get your free quote at ethos.com/NFL Daily. That's ethos.com/NFL Daily to get your free quote today. Application times may vary, rates may vary, and a big thank you to Ethos for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. Now, Kuiper starts his list off here with the number 25 player on his big board, quarterback out of Alabama, Ty Simpson. And yes, I do believe Simpson will be going in round one. I think the quarterback demand in the NFL is too high for him not to go in the first round. I know some people don't think he's a first-round talent or anything like that. But, rest assured, guys, Ty Simpson, somebody is going to fall in love with this kid, and he's going to go in round one. This is what Mel has to say about the QB out of Bama. His lack of experience might be a concern, as Simpson didn't start a game until this season, but the production is hard to ignore. Simpson knows the game and competes on every down. He's a battler who is always trying to make a play, sometimes to his detriment. Simpson maneuvers well in the pocket and can beat defenses with his legs when the passing play isn't there. And something else that I'll add to that profile on Ty Simpson is he's one of the better in-structure playmakers in this class, especially because he's already played in a pro-style offense under Ryan Grubb there at Alabama. This guy has more under center experience than probably every other quarterback in the NFL draft this year, and that transition is usually a really tough part of the transition for these younger guys, going from shotgun and pistol-heavy offenses in college to an under center style offense in the pros. Simpson will already have that skill set down pat. And personally, guys, I'm just going to let you guys know, I know a lot of people are lower on Simpson because of the way Alabama's season ended, but I'm higher on him, all right? I think that most of the film from this past season is excellent, all right? Like his ability to go under center, turn his back to the defense, snap his head around, take that mental snapshot, and then get the ball out on time and in rhythm is as good as I've seen from a college quarterback in a while, all right? Like his ability to do that is going to be a skill set that NFL teams cherish because a lot of the top offenses nowadays are like Shanahan or McVay or Ben Johnson style offenses where it's a lot of under center stuff. And, if you need a quarterback to come in and play a pro style offense right away, Simpson, I think, is your guy to do that. And guys, before his injuries, and he had a lot of injuries towards the end of the year, guys, like he details how he had, a disc issue in his back. He had Burris in his throwing elbow. He had a stomach lining issue as well, where he could apparently only have chicken noodle soup and bread for 2 straight weeks while he was still playing college football, by the way, towards the end of the year. And then he had a rib issue in the Rose Bowl against Indiana. So, when you take those things into account, you can kind of see why he dropped off towards the end of the season. But if the Steelers are going to have a McVay or Shanahan-style offense, guys, and that's the direction it certainly looks like right now, Ty would be a phenomenal fit. And especially if you ask him to play very quickly. Like if you're asking, one of these other guys that have pretty much played in exclusively, shotgun or pistol-style college offenses to go under center and, go through a full field progression read while turning your back to the defense, they're probably not going to do it at a very high level. If anybody has a chance of doing that at a high level in year one, it's going to be Ty Simpson, who, by the way, was a 5-star athlete with a really good arm, can run around really, really well. He's got some pretty decent pocket presence, and, he had the efficiency and the numbers that he had in the SEC this year without a run game and without really great protection at offensive line either. Now, he did have some good weapons at Alabama, but his ability to read out a defense, man, it looks like an NFL quarterback on film, okay? It does, in a pro-style offense. So that is something I think NFL teams are going to see when they go through the film on this guy, and he's probably going to go a lot higher than I think a lot of people that watch college football and saw Alabama kind of crumble at the end of the year think at this point. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Would you be okay taking Ty Simpson in round 1 this year when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section to let me know what you guys think about the Alabama product. Now we can move on here to the number 9 draft target for Mel Kiper Jr. when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. His number 24 player on his big board, Denzel Boston. And actually, Mel had the Steelers take Denzel Boston in his first mock draft, which released on Tuesday, or actually I think it was Wednesday this week. But Kiper says this about the Washington Husky receiver. Boston has developed into a nuanced route runner who uses his size and physicality to shield defenders from the football. His length and catch radius make life miserable for opposing cornerbacks. And the way Boston quickly finds openings in coverage jumps out on tape, helping him to 14.2 yards per catch on the season. He has Velcro-esque hands, allowing him to go high or low to haul in difficult receptions. And for me, guys, Boston is one of the more complete receivers in this entire class. All right, he's not going to be a guy that necessarily runs away from you, but he's a really nuanced route runner. He can get open. He's got really long extremities, and he's got great, ability to catch the football in the air away from his body. And, his catch radius is insane, and he can box people out. Like, if you combine him with DK Metcalf, that could be a legitimate wide receiver duo for the next half decade here in Pittsburgh. And now we continue on here with the wide receiver train, this time with Georgia wide receiver Zachariah Branch, who is an absolute ball of lightning as a playmaker, including on special teams, by the way. And with Calvin Austin III potentially leaving in free agency, Branch could replace him as this team's next punt returner as well. So what Kiper has to say about the Georgia receiver: Branch doesn't have ideal size, but he has a track background and is lightning quick. He reminds me a little of Zay Flowers. Branch plays the game at a different speed than everyone else, and it is why he's so effective in space. A transfer from USC, he can take a short completion for a big gain with his explosive skill set, averaging 7.9 yards after the catch per reception. And Branch also is a dynamic returner, which would help his draft stock. And when it comes to a guy like Branch, if you bring back Aaron Rodgers for another year and you have a quarterback in there that's going to want to dump it off and, get guys to, be explosive after the catch, Zachariah Branch is as explosive as it gets when it comes to being out in open space. So if you bring back Aaron Rodgers for another season and you have an opportunity to take Zachariah Branch, this is a guy that could get into some conversations for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. But then another Georgia Bulldog here on the list, C.J. Allen, the number 22 prospect on Mel Kiper Jr.'s big board here, the linebacker from the Bulldogs. And, Mike Tomlin was definitely a big component of Georgia Bulldogs, but I'm sure Omar Khan is still going to be keeping that love for Athens here in Pittsburgh. And this is what Mel has to say about the excellent linebacker from Georgia. Allen is a 3-down linebacker at the next level because his read and react skills are excellent, and he can make plays in all 3 aspects of the defense. He has the physicality to take on blocks in the run game, and he has the speed to chase down ball carriers once he disengages. He has the burst to blitz and to get to the quarterback too, and he can drop and defend in coverage. I agree with Mel that Allen is one of the more well-rounded linebackers in this class, and this is a tough position to be able to play at a high level on day one. I think that Allen is a bona fide NFL starting linebacker on day one. Certainly think that he's worth a relatively high draft pick. Then we get to the only corner on our list today, which is Mansour Delane from LSU. Currently the number 20 player on Mel Kiper Jr.'s big board. So let's see what he has to say about the LSU product. I am very impressed with the instincts and savviness Delane shows in coverage. He is a true technician and demonstrated excellent ball skills with 27 pass breakups and 8 interceptions over his 4-year career. He excels in both man and zone coverage, and his 3.3 yards per attempt on throws in his direction was 4th in the nation. Definitely think Delane is a good football player, guys. I'm not sure if the Steelers are going to be looking to get a bona fide starter in round 1, because I think they're probably going to sign a veteran in free agency of some variety to pair with Joey Porter Jr. This might be a position they get later in the draft, but Delane's certainly a good player. Now, before we get into the top 5 draft targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers, according to ESPN's Mel Kiper Jr., make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already, if you are enjoying today's show. We try to give you guys in-depth content on the Pittsburgh Steelers every single day, so if you appreciate that, help us out here by clicking that thumbs up icon. Then we get to Peter Woods, the defensive tackle from Clemson, currently the 19th overall prospect on Mel Kiper Jr.'s big board. Woods had a little bit of a disappointing season after he was a projected top 10 draft pick heading into this season. He's a very physically talented guy, is what Kiper has to say about the Clemson Tiger. Woods wasn't elite in 2025, but the skill set is exactly what NFL teams covet. In the pros, Woods would fit nicely at 3 technique, though he has the versatility to move around on a defensive front. He plays on the inside the majority of the time, but he can also be disruptive off the edge. His strength will intrigue a lot of NFL teams no matter where he lines up, and I do think he's probably going to be somebody that impresses at the combine, which might improve his stock a little bit, but honestly, when people turn on the tape, it's probably going to lower his draft stock a little bit. It wasn't a great year for Woods on tape. But then Caden McDonald is somebody that I'm a big fan of out of Ohio State. The big boy, run stuffer. This is exactly the type of thing the Pittsburgh Steelers need, in my opinion. Keanu Benton is not a run stuffer at nose tackle. I think they should move him to either 3 or 5 technique, and McDonald would be a great 1 tech that could jump into this defense immediately and be an impact. This is what Mel has to say about the Ohio State product. The Big Ten Defensive Lineman of the Year had a huge breakout season. Consider that he had 0 starts, 0 sacks, and just 24 tackles over the previous 2 seasons. McDonald crushed all those numbers over 14 starts this year. He's a force on the interior with incredible strength and quickness for a player at his size, and McDonald is active and sniffs out the football to make plays. And honestly, guys, this guy might be somebody that goes a little bit higher because he can get after quarterbacks as well as stop the run, and he does both those things at a really high level, and you just don't see that from nose tackles in the league. It's very rare to have a player like this, and kind of like a Dexter Lawrence mold of somebody that can get after quarterbacks and stop the run at a really high level. So I honestly think McDonald might sneak into some top 10 conversations before it's all said and done. But then we get to, I'm going to butcher the name, but Vega Ayoni, I think I'm saying that right. No, I completely butchered it. But the guard out of Penn State, all right? The number 17 overall prospect on Mel Kiper Jr.'s big board. And this is what Kiper has to say about Mr. Vega. I'm not going to say the last name, guys. Drives defensive tackles off the ball and sustains his blocks well. He can get to the second level and torque defenders out of the way, and he's incredibly agile at left guard for his size. I'm not going to say it, had 32 starts and gave up only 2 sacks over that time, both in 2023. And if the Steelers don't want to move Broderick Jones over to left guard and they want somebody for the future there, I could see that being a possibility. But honestly, if they want to get somebody on the offensive line, I think they're going to wait into the later rounds, unlike what they've done in some previous drafts. But then we get to Mekhi Lemon as the number 2 draft target for the Pittsburgh Steelers, according to Mel Kiper Jr., who says this about the USC wide receiver. This kid is a warrior who plays with passion. I'd want Lemon on my roster. He snatches the ball away from his body in an attacking manner, then runs with a fierce approach after the catch. He is one of my favorite players in the class, and he ranked 3rd in the nation in receiving yards per game. And what I love about Lemon, guys, is his versatility and the things that he can do. Like, you look at the number 1 receivers in the league now, they can do a lot of different things. They can get open against man, and they're really good route runners in that way. They can make tough catches. They're really good after the catch. They can win deep down the field into all 3 levels of the field, and that's what Lemon does. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's got an awesome, versatile skill set, and whatever you ask him to do, he's going to do it at a pretty darn high level. Would love to have him as the next number 2 receiver here in Pittsburgh. And then the number 1 draft target in round 1, according to Mel Kiper Jr. for the Pittsburgh Steelers, is none other than Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. Currently ranks 10th on Mel's big board. This is what Kiper has to say. The Colorado transfer lit up defenses for 2 seasons with the Sun Devils. Tyson's superpower is being open even when it looks like he's completely blanketed. It makes him essentially uncoverable in the red zone. He wins on 50-50 balls and outmuscles defensive backs. A hamstring injury costs him time this season, but he still posted solid numbers.
With a new head coach set to take over in the coming days or weeks, the Pittsburgh Steelers roster is sure to see some upheaval this offseason. As Mike Tomlin exits the picture upon stepping down following a 19-year stint in Pittsburgh, his system and vision for the team is set to more or less become obsolete. While general manager Omar Khan remains in place, meaning an entirely new regime won't be joining the organization, a healthy number of changes will still have to be made amongst the team's personnel as they step into a new era. With that, here are 5 players who could be on the chopping block for the Steelers. Pittsburgh was able to poach Queen from its division rivals, the Baltimore Ravens, in free agency ahead of the 2024 campaign on a 3-year, $41 million deal. He served as the Steelers' hub of communication on defense while wearing the green dot on his helmet, and while he had his moments of good play for the team over the past 2 seasons, his inconsistencies in coverage, combined with a league-leading 32 tackles in 2025 per Pro Football Focus, makes him a prime cut candidate. Should Pittsburgh land on that decision, it would save $13,330 million by releasing him while also incurring $3.863 million in dead money per over the cap. There was some hope that Smith would emerge as one of Aaron Rodgers' top targets upon arriving in Pittsburgh via trade from the Miami Dolphins alongside Jalen Ramsey last summer, but he never got in sync with a 4-time MVP and struggled to find his footing. Despite his prior experience playing under Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith with the Tennessee Titans and Atlanta Falcons, Jonnu Smith finished the year with just 222 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns on 38 catches while playing 52% of the team's offensive snaps. With Arthur Smith on his way out of Pittsburgh next to Tomlin, the 30-year-old tight end could be in that same boat. Despite being under contract for the 2026 campaign, the Steelers would save $7 million by cutting him, which feels like a no-brainer for them as they move forward. A 3rd-round pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, after winning a national title at Michigan as a senior, the hope was that Wilson would step in and have an immediate impact for a Steelers team that desperately needed help at wide receiver. He'd proceed to log just 5 snaps as a rookie while battling injuries, however, and he posted just 166 yards with 2 touchdowns on 12 catches this season, while consistently being a healthy and active towards the end of the year, while the likes of Adam Thielen, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and Scotty Miller earned reps over him. Wilson is a talented player who has some upside, but it wouldn't come as a major surprise if he doesn't have a place in Pittsburgh's new offense and is an odd man out as a result. Unlike the other players on this list, Highsmith is not in danger of being cut and instead could find himself on the trade block. The Steelers have a stacked group of edge rushers with the likes of TJ Watt and Nick Herbig alongside Highsmith, while Jack Sawyer looks to earn an elevated role next season. With Watt having just signed a 3-year, $123 million extension ahead of training camp last summer, and Herbig profiling as a potential long-term building block at just 24 years old, Pittsburgh could look to move Highsmith, who recorded 9.5 sacks in 13 games this season, in exchange for draft capital and or a player at a position of need. Should the Steelers trade him with a post-June 1st designation, they'd recoup $14.5 million in cap savings while taking on $5,602 million in dead money. Brian Flores' tenure as Dolphins head coach ended poorly, but can he work for the Steelers? His players seem to think so. Not only did he make a lasting impression during his 1 season in Pittsburgh following his firing from Miami, those who have worked with him before and after notice a difference. One player specifically is Andrew Van Ginkel, whom Brian Flores drafted as the Dolphins head coach in 2019 and has since played under him with the Vikings for the past 2 seasons. He spoke to NFL insider Aditi Kinkhabwala during the season, the details of which conversation she relayed on 93.7 The Fan, discussing Brian Flores' reputation of being hard on players and how that might affect his ability to work as the Steelers head coach. She didn't seem to think that would be a problem. Andrew Van Ginkel said that Brian is definitely different as a person and as a leader in how he relates to players. Harrison Smith told me that he would 100% vouch for the way that Flo leads and the way that he talks to players. With Watt having just signed a 3-year, $123 million extension ahead of training camp last summer and Herbig profiling as a potential long-term building block at just 24 years old, Pittsburgh could look to move Highsmith, who recorded 9.5 sacks in 13 games this season, in exchange for draft capital and or a player at a position of need. Should the Steelers trade him with a post-June 1st designation, they'd recoup $14.5 million in cap savings while taking on $5,602 million in dead money. Flores grew up as a coach under Bill Belichick, who wasn't necessarily a people person, in New England. While he helped turn the Dolphins around as their head coach, there were lingering concerns. The primary issue was his relationship with QB Tua Tagovailoa, which was, let's say, not good. But Flores learned from that and learned from his time working under a more relationship-oriented head coach with the Steelers. The biggest piece here is that Brian Flores himself has repeatedly acknowledged what he would do differently and what he has learned, Kinkabwala said. He's been so vocal about how much he learned from Mike Tomlin in this 1 year here in terms of being able to relate to every single player, in terms of it being vital to connect with every single player in some way. It wasn't just Brian Flores saying this about how the Steelers impacted him, his players even said it. Dean Lowry, for example, who played under Flores with the Vikings after his 1 year with the Steelers, talked about how Mike Tomlin rubbed off on him. Last season, before the Vikings played the Steelers, Brian Flores talked about the immense influence Tomlin had on him. Likewise, Tomlin vouched for him, including his time with the Dolphins. If Tomlin is in any way consulting the Steelers on who should succeed him, you know Flores has his vote. Kinkabwala says that Flores also learned in particular the importance of the relationship with his quarterback from Vikings HC Kevin O'Connell, another key influence as he seeks his next head coach opportunity, which, if it comes anywhere, seems likely to come from the Steelers. She also gave an example of how these changes work in practice, literally. Van Ginkel was telling me just a few weeks ago that Flores might try to put in something complex, and if it's just not working, he'll go to him and say, it's just not working. And Flo will say, okay, then we'll drop it then, forget it, she said. But sometimes Flo will say, wait, we really need this to work, so let's figure out how we can better teach it. That doesn't sound like the Brian Flores who earned a reputation of being hard to work with as head coach of the Dolphins before beginning to revitalize his image with the Steelers. The players here always spoke highly of him while in Pittsburgh, and since, even though he re-signed with the Vikings, he is still in the running. Harrison Smith told me that he would 100% vouch for the way that Flo leads and the way that he talks to players, with Watt having just signed a 3-year, $123 million extension ahead of training camp last summer and Herbig profiling as a potential long-term building block at just 24 years old. Pittsburgh could look to move Highsmith, who recorded 9.5 sacks in 13 games this season, in exchange for draft capital and or a player at a position of need. Should the Steelers trade him with a post-June 1st designation, they'd recoup $14.5 million in cap savings while taking on $5,602 million in dead money.